I know that we're meeting a little earlier than we usually do, and it's because I have another group that I'm working with right after this one. So busy day. So we will have a hard stop, which is, I mean, usually I leave the breakout rooms open for a while, but you're going to have plenty of time in breakouts today. So we just have a small bit. I want to show you some things about boot camps. I want to do some problem solving together as a group. And then I want you to have time to work together, because the thing that you're now going to be ready to work on in theory is the for your plan, how you're going to get to scale, meet the objectives of the state, but also meet your own objectives that we want to increase outcomes. There's two facets to it. There's all the stuff that affects academic affairs, and then there's all the stuff that affects student affairs or student services, whatever you call it. So heads up, and I will remind you of this multiple times, but you need to be thinking who on your team who is part of student services, and what areas of student services are not represented, because you need to invite those people for the next two meetings. So you're going to have a lot more people together. But that's important, because otherwise you're going to have a giant list of, well, we got to go find out from such and such if we can do that with financial aid or not. It might as well just have have someone from registration, or admissions, however you guys do it. Definitely advising. We cannot do this without the advisors. Definitely it'd be good to have someone from student affairs that's an administrator, as well as academic affairs that's an administrator. Sometimes that comes into handy to have both in the room. But you need anybody that any aspect that we're looking at this. If you're thinking, well, I know this is going to impact testing, or we're going to have we've got people over in the placement, like anybody you think in student affairs that runs an area that's going to have this impact them, get them to that meeting. It's going to make it so much easier to get the planning done. So that will be our last two meetings. Now, if you're wondering why are we meeting a week right after we just met, it's because next week I'm in Nashville for the NOS conference, National Organization of Student Success. I'm curious, is anybody here going to NOS? If you are, say so in the chat. I'm curious if I'll see any of you there. Anyone? Bueller? No. Okay, so we shall see. But because of that, and then we're also up against everybody's spring breaks. And I know some of you, I mean, everybody has a different spring break in terms of probably every week in March is accounted for someone's break, which I get. So the way that we're doing this is, and I'll remind you again when we go into homework and all of that, is our next office hour is not next week, but it's the following week, which is good. So you've got 2 weeks between now and our next meeting. You will need that. And I do this every day, so I'm not delusional and think you're going to magically have everything done in 2 weeks, but I would like you to have a good start on your academic plan in the next 2 weeks and know the things that you still need to figure out. So that's why you're going to have you have a checklist. It's going to help you through it. Okay, so let me bring up my list. We talked about that. Okay, I always share this, but I'll just share it again. The main document that has the links to everything you need. It takes you to this overall document in case you ever want to know how to get on different lists, where the drive is, when our meetings are. Now, if you're wondering, so March 30th is it? No. March 30th is the end of what we call the intensive. And I'm guessing you believe me on that. There's a reason I call it that, because it is. This is a very intense time where we meet often. We're figuring out big things, lots of conversations. It's a very compacted thing. And if you're wondering, why don't we have more time to do it? Because, and I can't remember, I don't know if it's Pareto's law. It's someone's law that the work will expand to the time you give it. So if we give this 3 years, it'll take 3 years. If we give this 3 months, it'll take 3 months. Because the reality is we could debate on some of these philosophical issues forever. So it's like, I've done this long enough to know we got to have some time, but we don't want to have all the time in the world. We need to make a decision and make a plan for being able to adjust those decisions. Because no one has a crystal ball to know how all of these things are going to play out at your college. We just have best practices. And so when we start into April, And for the following year, I'll be working with you guys. It's going to be, we're moving to what I call the accelerator. And the accelerator is all about implementation and iteration. Everybody's in different places, but it's what are you trying to put into place? What's working, what's not? We have professional development for math faculty. You're going to get resources. We're going to talk lots about classroom issues. We're going to really get into the weeds of making this plan work. So the idea is by the end of March that you have a plan, that we know what we're doing. Okay. Oh, that wasn't good. Okay, there we go. My desk needed to move. All right, so we've got our schedule. We talked about that. Oh yeah, I need to do attendance stuff. Please go to the chat and same form as always. I just need your name, institution, and probably role. Yes, first, last name, institution, and role. Please do attendance forms in the chat. Looks like that. Awesome. Okay, so while you're completing that, or if you've already completed it, let's do some problem solving. The homework last time was to figure out your placement approach. That's a huge, heavy lift. I doubt everybody got that done in a week. And some of you already, I mean, everybody has a placement approach, but it's how far are you going with yours to adjust it to potentially have guided self-placement. So what I want to know is, let's get a status update. So I need each college, let me know, like, what has happened in the last week. Just go ahead and put it in the chat. Like, we talked, but we're still trying to figure this out. Or we already have a plan, but we're making some tweaks to it. Or we need to talk to such and such, whatever. Where are you at with placement? Put an update in the chat and put your college's name. Awesome, Ken. So I guess Ken, a week already happened. I know it's like this week has been brutal. I mean, a lot going on. So I guess Ken, I would ask, and hopefully the answer is it is working, but I would say what's working and what needs adjustment, if anything. And if it's working, awesome, because we need to hear from you why, because everybody can benefit from that. Also, let's see, there's Ken. Ken, could you share any of your, like, if you have any documents that are how you're doing guided self-placement? It would be awesome to see it.
I don't have them, but I know they do exist, so I'll get them out. It needs a lot of work. I'll just put it that way. So making sure the students are in the right classes and whatnot. It's something that we're trying to make sure that happens.
Okay. Let's see, Kellogg. Okay, still working on initial implementation. Henry Ford. Yeah, it's been a really quick week. And then what week are you guys in? Who's in, like, are you in like week 5, 6, 7, 8? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Where are you at in the semester? 7. Okay. We got one more and spring break for a lot of people. I'm like, I don't know if you're like me, but. All right. Okay, so in the past week, nothing. We started discussion around guided self-placement. Okay. All right. Does anybody have, because as we looked at this last time, it's really hard to see each school's survey because most of those surveys are hidden behind the student information system. A student has to like sign in as a student to see the survey. If anybody has their survey and would be willing to share it, even if it's just the list in a Word document, that would be so helpful to other schools. It's really good to see what other people are doing, because this is one thing to keep in mind. I know I mentioned this, but just know this: the simpler your flow chart is, the simpler your placement can be. And you don't have to ask a ton of questions. Really, what we need to know is, what pathway are you headed towards? If you don't know, we direct them towards non-STEM. We'll talk more about that today, but we direct them towards non-STEM. If you know their pathway, then it's how much help do you need? And you don't have to ask 20 math questions to get to that. It really is not, it's not necessary for them to rate their ability. I thought it was so funny. I was talking to my husband. My husband is an engineer. My daughter's an engineer. My son is pre-med. I'm, math, I was a math professor forever. And then now I do consulting. We're all STEM, love STEM. And I asked my husband and then my daughter after he said this, I said, how would you rate yourself about math? Okay. He has a minor in it. And he's been an engineer for 25 years. He goes, oh, I would not rate myself very good. And I'm like, but you have he's like, oh, I'm not like you and Will. My son's name's Will. He goes, you guys just love math and you're all into it and everything. And my daughter was the same way. And I thought that was interesting. We cannot ask people to judge their abilities because even people with strong abilities don't necessarily see them as such. So stay away from the subjective stuff and stay in and get into the objective things so we can get a sense of how much support do they need. That's the idea. Okay, yes, Muskegon. Woohoo! All right, we've got. Oh, thank you, JB too. So you got your open your questionnaire. Okay, and so anybody could go through this, JB. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. It's open for anybody to look at.
Thank you. That's like how Three Rivers is. I would highly encourage people, poke around with that if you're looking for example. Course placement, this is fantastic. So also this is just really nice. I mean, I didn't even see the big buttons that actually say flow chart, questionnaire. But if you're, we don't have to invent the wheel. Look at what people are doing and see if there's things here that appeal to you. Also, that helps with selling it to your people. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say this was developed last year and it was a full college exercise, right? We had people representation from everywhere across the college in all of those conversations.
That's fantastic. That's what we want. That's what we want. So
yes, it was developed last year while JB was on sabbatical. No,
that is true.
Excellent timing, JB. Excellent. Okay, let me guess. Was your sabbatical related to developmental?
100%.
I figured. Yeah. All right. So let's go back to, let's get an update. So before we dive into what we need to talk about today, who is in a situation, because I've seen so many of office hours this week. It's awesome. We have been problem solving. Who needs some help? What do we need to talk through? Or you want input from the group on something? What are other people doing? This is working, this is not. Unmute and let us know, what do you need?
So I was wondering, is there a way to kind of curate other information besides just academic information for course placement, such as non-cognitive, like results from like a non-cognitive assessment, assessing like essential skills such as conscientiousness and communication and time management and things like that, and then also career interest and strengths, so that students could kind of see the big picture of like, well, here are some of my strengths, here are some of the things that I have going for me, and those will likely need to be taken into consideration when choosing kind of a pathway in terms of which math I want to take that's aligned with my goals. So I don't know if anybody has something like that where there's kind of I was thinking about like a dashboard or something where it would bring in maybe results from AccuPlacer, results from maybe a non-cognitive assessment like Engage or something like that. And then maybe another like a career assessment, showing students, areas where they might be a good fit for their personality and the environment. So those are some things that I thought would create a more useful discussion for a student in terms of like a facilitated, like contextualized synthesis of here's where I am and here's all the things I might want to consider when choosing which courses to start out taking.
I do want to hear from what people are doing on that, but I will tell you a couple of things with it. It's what you want is valid. We should want to have all these different aspects. The problem is it's hard to get all of those in one place. but it's not that it's not worth trying. It is. And advisors generally do, like, they will be pulling up like a screen on students, and they'll have these different things, and they might also have questionnaires. I think it's definitely good to have. That's why I wasn't listening. I was trying to click through and see more questions from Muskegon. Having some of the questions like you were just talking about in your questionnaire, absolutely, I would definitely include. But here's the other thing. I would not worry about trying to get fine grain with any of this, because if you have the approach that has been shown to work, it's less options and as simple as can be. And it's just, let's go with what pathway are you in? That tells me what math course you need. And then do you need more help or not? And that
So,
generally will help tell us a lot.
And that's kind of I thought kind of the point of this was not tell me what path you're in, but what path is best suited for you given this information.
True. And I mean, they do that with advisors. I mean, sometimes they know and sometimes they don't. And I think this is also what you're bringing up. The guided self-placement, we will continue to have these discussions when we bring in more student affairs. We already have some student affairs here, but we'll have a whole lot more. But others, what are your thoughts and what do you do?
Yes, Kathy, I agree with what you said. When we made up these questionnaires at Muskegon last year and over the summer and that, we thought of all sorts of questions we could put on there. That might be helpful to know. But then we weren't sure exactly how we could flowchart those, in a Microsoft form. And then we also decided pretty early on that we wanted as few questions as possible to reach some sort of a recommendation. And the grander question is, like with Michigan Transfer Agreement, how do we know if a student is best for math for liberal arts, statistics, or college algebra track? That's a great question. And that's something everybody's wrestling with. I think at Muskegon, we've made a lot of progress in getting people away from the college algebra track toward the other two. So I'm happy about that. But that does take some time.
Any others want to weigh in on what you're doing with this? Because it's not a simple thing for sure. And it's going to have error with it. So that's another reason why we're trying to minimize choices, so we minimize the error. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
This is Seth from Muskegon Community College. I just wanted to chime in there. Thank you, Gary, hi there. Hi, Kathleen and everybody. I wanted to mention too, a lot of the four-year colleges we work with have been really great about creating transfer guides for us. And so that choice is often going to be determined by that as well.
Yes, and that's the whole thing. I mean, I'm making notes because I know we need to talk more about this, because Chris, I don't want you to think that we're ignoring this. I'm just thinking we need to have a bigger conversation about this in the next two meetings. So I'm making a note that we need to bring this up with student affairs. I'm sure you can hear that. I apologize. It's funny. Some of you I saw yesterday, my power went off 5 times in 2 hours yesterday, but God bless, because we have ice and thankfully it's melted. I have some kind of like backup surge protector thing on my computer, and then we have a house generator, and surprisingly I didn't lose Zoom, but the lights flickered for fun. That was, now you get the dog. Okay. Yeah, the complexity in all of this is, it's like we can, and it sounds like what I'm saying is super simple. And I know it isn't, because it does depend on, Seth, exactly what you said. It's also like, we need to know, are you going to transfer? Do you have plans to do that? Do you think you will transfer? Do you think you know what school you want to go to? And that's where I get the whole idea. Well, if we had everybody go through STEM, then we would have all our bases covered. I get the intent, but that does not bear out. So we'll talk about that in a second, but that isn't the solution. We've been using it for 40 years and it hasn't worked. So I'm just saying it doesn't work as much as we think it does. So Nala.
Hi, so currently at the college, we're still working on the self-guided placement. However, I am the math coach. I've been designated to that job since fall of last year. Before that, I was coordinating the intermediate algebra courses. So my job is actually what you're talking about is I interview the students. I talk to them before the semester start in all the gateway courses, like 110, like the liberal art math 131 we have, or 141. And I find out more about themselves. They have spoken, they have talked to an advisor, but when they talk to me, I tend to try to find out more about the students not just why they choose the career, what's going on in their lives. You know, are they the things we need to pay attention to before they start the semester? So I generally go through all the list of students in each of these courses, and I contact a majority of the students that I feel I need to talk to. And then when they start the semester, we provide them with the support. So I am there to support them. I provide them with supports, not just academically to go to get some tutoring, but contacting them with counselors if they need, if there's something on in their lives, getting them back with the advisors if they don't really know or they think of changing their major. So we have been doing that. I have been successful in a way that I pulled out some of these students that were going into the so-called STEM, Math 110, but really they didn't intend to go to. They wanted to change their mind later to make them change and take more a liberal art course or statistics. So that's what
first off, I love what you're saying, because I was just going to give a suggestion similar to this in just a minute. We talk about boot camps, because if you're wondering, if you're like, ooh, but we don't have a Nala, we don't have a position, I'm going to show you a place where you can accomplish what she is doing. But Nala, what school are you at?
I'm at Henry Ford College.
Henry Ford. Okay. Yes, Gary.
Right, just quick on this. I do think that initial decision or initial placement is always subject to change, and sometimes students don't know what they want or where they will end up. I mean, we have this class we created as a whole footnote to this whole guided self-placement thing. And Michigan Reconnect was the Math for Health Science class for like the pre-nursing and pre-respiratory therapy students and that. And, you know, I've been teaching it this year, and a couple of our adjuncts have as well. You know, we met with nursing department and stuff. And I mean, basically, there's no prereq on the course. Anybody can take it. And, you know, probably about half of those students will end up in nursing program. Half of them will not. Right now, they're running about a 2-year wait list on our nursing program. So there's a lot of things we really don't have control over there. It's good to know what they want to do. But even in a class like that, where everybody says, yeah, I want to be a nurse, it's probably not going to work out that way in the long term.
Okay. Yeah. And so this is an excellent segue. Okay, let's look at boot camps. That has come up as a lot. That's many times I've heard in the last 2 weeks, and a lot of you. I was talking to Jenny earlier this week, also Jenny Shanker at MCCA. She will be at our next office hour, which I believe is on the 9th. And I think she's coming to our next meeting on the 10th. Not that you can't email her between now and then, but if you just like want to be able to talk to her, she is going to be at our next 2 meetings. Okay, so let's do, I have a short, I want to give you some tips. I will add all that, because there's lots of like bullet points that I think that you might want to reference at some point. So I will add these slides. Actually, when you go into, and the reason I'm not showing them you yet, because I don't want you to skip ahead and see all the fun before I get there, but I will add the link to the slides once you guys go into breakouts. All right, so let's look at boot camps. We're still in the top 2 here, figuring out courses and scheduling and placement and testing, and boot camps. They kind of straddle both, and they're a really nice tool. So the goal, okay, so again, you're off doing email, come back. I need you to look at this with me, because, and especially if you're like, I already have a boot camp. What is she going to tell me I don't know? Again, I do this for a living, and I learned so much in the last 3 months about boot camps. It's not even funny. That's the best part about it. Talking to other people and hearing how they're used. I've learned so many ways and so many things you can do with them. And I thought I knew what you could do with boot camps. Turns out there's always something to learn. So where we want to head is in the last 2 meetings is where we dive deep into making these courses and placement happen with your student affairs or student services staff. So we get into the weeds of how do we advise students? How do we register students? All of that stuff. How do we make your student information system, banner, or what PeopleSoft, whatever you use? How do we make it work? For those 2 meetings to be effective, we have to know what it is we're doing. And so we've got to make some decisions. And if you've got people, so I want to give you a hint on this, because I see a lot of schools that are in this place right now, where it's like, we've got to make a decision. I don't think we can all come to agreement. That's entirely possible that you can't all come to agreement. And that can't be the metric. You want to have as many people on board as possible, for sure. But you're going to have to be willing that you're going to have some people that may not support what is happening. And if you're like, well, I don't want to ignore that. I get it. But that's the reason why we have a law. If you ever wonder, why do we have a law? It's because policymakers don't love, and it's funny because I'm taking a policy class right now for my graduate degree or my doctorate degree. Policymakers don't like how slow we move in academia and how much we want to have discussions on everything and really debate all the things. There's a lot of research and they're like, why aren't they using this? Because we have processes to like shared governments, how we do things. That's why we have laws. They're tired of waiting for us to talk through it. That doesn't mean that everybody on your board on campus is on board. I mean, I get that. So things that I would do is, as you are having these discussions, because several of you are like, we got to make decisions in the very near future. No matter what you decide, it can be changed. And some people won't believe you on that because they'll believe you, oh, that's just a tactic. No, it really can be. And you have to be willing to do that. So if something really isn't working, and it doesn't mean scrap it, it means adjust it. Because we're keeping something that hasn't worked for a long time and we've just been adjusting it forever. So you have to be willing to adjust the new thing as well. Also, you need to be paying attention to who are your most vocal critics. I've seen it's a lot of schools where the people that are the most vocal critics don't teach any of these courses. They don't teach them. They don't teach the courses before it. Anyway, it's just philosophical. I'm not saying that their points aren't valid. They are. But we can't be deterred by a couple of people who will get very loud and have very strong opinions because philosophically they don't love this. It's not even going to affect their load. We have to like accept that not everybody's going to be on board with everything, and sometimes we just have to move on. I don't like doing that. I like having win-win solutions. I'm just telling you, I do this for every day, and it's just not always possible to get everybody on board, although we try. Okay, so let's look at some assumptions, okay? So we just have a couple today. One is that we need standalone developmental for STEM-bound students. That's the big thing that I see most often, and I would say that I thought this for a long time. And it's kind of nice because in some states they can still have a standalone developmental course for STEM-bound students. It is kind of nice. The question is it necessary? And we're finding, no, it isn't. Even though it's like, oh yeah, we could have them go through some kind of full length course, full semester thing to review before they take, let's say, your college algebra co-rec. For a lot of students, it's still not necessary, which is why, states like yours are saying you can't really do that. And we can still serve STEM students well. That to me is where using a boot camp very intentionally, and I will show you how to, this is from the schools that I see that have the most success. What are they doing to get the most success? Show you what they do. Okay, and you may be one of those schools. So if you have one that is working and is rocking, please tell us because we can learn from you as well. Yes, Gary.
Yes, just really quickly. I worked at an institution before. This was 15 years ago, worked with a bunch of PhDs, and they had interesting opinions about all these developmental classes at community colleges. And one of their opinions, which I kind of adopted over the years, was that the reason they don't work as well as people think they do is because every student's needs are different and these course objectives are kind of static. So, if you think about it that way, even for students pursuing STEM, like you're mentioning right now, everybody has a different set of abilities and areas where they need help. And so, we have the technology to deal with that in a non-classroom situation nowadays.
Gary, it's like people would think you're a plant for me. He's not. We don't coordinate any of this in advance, but thank you, because I agree. So this is the other big assumption too, and this came up a lot last week, and it's still the norm in a lot of places, that if a student is undecided, we put them in the STEM pathway because then if they transfer, whatever, change their mind, whatever, they have maximum options. The assumption is that only works if they can get through the course. And keep in mind, of all of your co-requisites, your co-requisite that is hardest to get through is your college algebra co-requisite. So that is very, very, very difficult. And if you're thinking, well, then that's why we shouldn't have a co-rec. It doesn't matter if we have the standalone courses like we have now. That's still the hardest path to get anybody through. And again, when students don't have success in math, not that they can't fail, I get it, we're not going to have them all pass, but if we have lots and lots of students that do not succeed in math, they internalize that as they're not meant for college. So that's why we're trying to reduce this, because it's not just like they drop your class, they come back next semester. Sometimes they don't come back ever. Okay, so the idea, they have the lowest success rates, but that's where we're supposed to put everybody. It's like, no, because it doesn't work. I wish it did, but it doesn't work. And the whole idea is if we put them there, we're going to save time. No, not necessarily. And you can have it and everything happen in the same amount of time and have a positive experience for students. So we do that often because we think it's going to save them a semester. Okay, so there are different ways that we can save them, multiple semesters. And one of them is a boot camp. The other that's come up several times this week that I showed you guys, I know we looked at the flow chart options, is the idea of having, for students who aren't ready for your STEM course or your STEM co-requisite, having them go through a non-STEM course you have. Instead of starting them in like your beginning, intermediate, compressed, or whatever it is, or something like that, start them in your non-STEM course. I know we talked about it a lot of times, and there's still like, we can't, there's a lot of faculty just cannot, like, that can't be true. The thing I encourage you to realize is, because I've had to do this too, I'm not saying I figured it all out, I'm just saying I've had to go through all of these thoughts too, is just because I don't think it can work doesn't mean it can't work. And there are schools that are making it work. So I would consider it. Okay, that's just one. Consider having your non-STEM course, like your stats or your QR course. Actually, of the two, I would pick your QR course, your liberal arts, because it has a really high success rate. It can get students in the groove of what it feels like to be a college student, have a legitimate success. And then they're like, hey, I like math. I like what we're doing here. Hey, well, then go take college algebra, co-rec, and your chances of getting through it are going to be pretty good. Okay, you've had a semester to get your math skills awakened. It's going to help. Okay, so that should not be in there. I should have deleted that. All right, and I will in a minute. So when I say boot camp, I'm going to interchangeably use that with the concept of bridge program. Now, everybody does these differently. So the definition that I'm using is this is something that is short term and it is not a course. Okay, so it's some kind of non-course, although there are schools that do call them a course because in certain states you're still allowed to do that. They might do it as 1 credit, pass, fail, something like that. But what I'm talking about is, especially Michigan case, it's not a course. It's this thing, this program basically you're providing short term. Okay, we get refresher skills while bridging the gap to being able to start college coursework. Okay, so you can do them just for math, just for English. You can combine them and have math, English, the whole 9 yards, where you have them tour the campus. Lots of people do all of that. And for many of you who are getting the funding from the academic catch-up, that might be what you're doing, which is perfectly fine. If you can't do all of that, at minimum, you can do a math bridge program or boot camp where you integrate student success skills, because that's what we're trying to do. And then and I'll show you in a second, and it ties exactly into what Nala said. There's a lot of stuff we can do in these that we get access to. We can get students to sign up for them. Okay, so I do call them my Swiss Army knife for redesign because they are that versatile. Okay, first up, yes, the thing that we always think of them as, okay, this is for the kids that just graduated high school, but maybe they've taken off a year or two of math and they need a little brush up. This is great for them, but it's not just for them. You can have, non-traditional students, anybody that needs to refresh on their skills or improve their skills. It's lovely to help them in between semesters, more quickly than a course. And of course, in the case of Michigan, it'll be free for them. However, there's all kinds of other places where it can be used that beyond just that initial brush up. Okay. Boot camps are phenomenal for your students that are STEM bound, and exactly what Gary was talking about. Every student has algebra skills they need brushed up on, but nobody has exactly the same set of skills they need to work on. So I really encourage use of technology, which most of you do, whatever program you want. I do have an update on Alex. I'll give you guys that in a minute. So yeah, using some kind of technology, whatever you want, can allow you to differentiate, but there's things that we can do more than just put them in a lab and have students work on a program and we walk around and help them like the old school Emporium model. want to show you in a second how we can use technology and get more out of it. Okay, but this is excellent for the student. You think, wow, that co-rec is a lot. I don't know that they could do a college algebra co-rec right off the bat. This is a great solution. This is supposed to be a positive experience. A boot camp is not going to be something that is going to be a detriment to them anyway. And if you sell it as such, it's like, hey, you do well in this, you could potentially skip a course if you place high enough. That's one of the great things about it. It does allow students to have a little bit more agency over their path. Again, in a legitimate way. There's software out there that reviews many levels, not just beginning algebra. Here's one that I love, and I'm seeing more schools trying this. They offer their boot camps at the end of their semester. So like April, November, December, May. Now, in that time, last 4 weeks, basically, when students know that they're going to have, they've already withdrawn, or they know they're going to have to withdraw, and they get a repeat, but we don't want them to come back and just do the same course again, just like they did, even with the co-rec. They're going to have the same outcome unless they do something different. This is the do something different. This gives them a chance to work on their skills, work with a teacher, and make some progress. And again, this is a great place for you to get a chance to do some advising and help them with their study skills. What did you do during the course that, you know, like maybe work got out of control for them? Maybe they had way too many hours and they couldn't get on top of things. This gives us a chance to connect with them about other issues that can help them be successful for the following semester. Okay, so let's get into the best practices. There's a lot of them. So, but the main idea I want you to know is if you have one, awesome, because you don't have to develop it, but you can do some adjustments and get more impact with it, which is what's really cool. Less is more. Do not make this any longer than it has to be. We're not trying to accomplish a full course. We're trying to get them, we're trying to brush up, get them thinking again, get them acclimated to the college. These are the goals. It's not accomplish a whole course, but we have co-requisites to do the heavier lift on that. The longer they are, the harder they are to staff, schedule, and get students to enroll. So I see schools that do 1 week, 2 weeks, and that is plenty. You don't have to do this as 4 weeks or a whole semester. Now, can you? Sure. There's some schools that I heard about, and I need to find this study and read it. There's some school that recently they did 1 hour, 1 week for 7 weeks. I think they did it while their students were in like an orientation class. There's all different ways to do it, but the main thing is I would pull back on the number of hours that you have, that it's not as much as a full class, but no matter how you distribute it. 4 weeks in summer, then weekly meetings during semesters 1 and 2. Very cool. That's very cool. Also, Bowling Green, I've seen their math lab. That was where we looked at our math lab years before, 2006, when we were going to develop ours. We went to Bowling Green. So less is more. If I would say start with less than you think you're comfortable with, and increase it if you need to, because again, it will be easier to get students to sign up. And because that's the biggest struggle. You ask anybody that has a boot camp, and if you have one, you'll probably realize this too. If it's not required, if it's not a course, it's really hard to get people to sign up for it. So this gives us, you know, it's like, this isn't some huge awful thing. Secondly, use software to get that individualized review, but don't only use software. Okay, so this is where we need to, in these boot camps, the ones again that we have the most impact is where we do more than just skills. We work on things like having them work in groups, having them work on some problems together. You can do, and actually, hey now, had a whole thing there. That was awesome. Okay, the guy that wrote this, Building Thinking Classrooms, Peter Liljadal, he was the keynote at Amatic last year, and he has many presentations online if you want to see it. This book is amazing. He also has one for like if you're teaching hybrid, remote, online, all different kinds of things. It's a smaller one that's blue. His whole thing, it works for K-12, but also college. How do we engage students in math, calculus, algebra, arithmetic, whatever? How do we engage them? The way that we engage them is not by just having them sit at a computer or just showing them problems and then writing them down. He has many techniques on how to engage student learning, but that we need to do something where we get them engaged, talking to each other and working on content. The easiest thing you can do is have everybody go up to the board. He's really big on that, where everybody goes to the board and you go in groups and you work on problems together. It's a simple thing and it has a big impact. So consider that. And if you're like, but they're all working on different skills. Yeah, but you can group them. There might be several of them that are, you know, they need a lot of fraction review. You might have several of them that are working on factoring, whatever. You can group them together, and maybe you group them in different ways based on different things you see. And so they get to know more people. That's okay. Offer them in person, but you could also do them online synchronous. And if you do that, that really helps when you've got students that may be out of town, or non-traditional students that are working during the day and they may not be able to do things. It just, you know, just be thinking about, just like we do with regular classes, what are different times and ways that we could offer them so we can better work with their lives. And one option is to do it asynchronously. Now, I don't love this. So, because if you're doing asynchronous, where it's just like, you know, an online class and you're telling them, okay, you need to go work on your plan, you need to go work on whatever, you know, we're hoping that they're going to engage themselves and do that. And we know a lot of students won't. So what helps if you're going to do an asynchronous approach is still have something synchronous in it, but just maybe not as often as if the whole thing was synchronous. So just don't go all async. Okay. You can, we talked about this, but this is the other thing too, a lot of these softwares, you can use these softwares during the semester when you are in a course. You don't have to just use them during the boot camp. I didn't have that in here, but so yes, you can use them before and between courses to advance their progression, allow them potentially skip. You might have a student that could, you know, move up a level, or at least skip the co-requisite part. Maybe they get enough brush up, they just go in the full version of the course. That is entirely possible. Don't make them for credit. We talked about that. They're not a course. Allow them to only be beneficial, okay? Meaning you're not going to have students take it over and over again and have to get a certain score. That is not how to use them. Instead, the idea is when they exit the boot camp, everybody is going into college level. The question is, are you just going to have a co-rec or not? So to have that be the incentive, hey, if you do well on, if you take a placement test at the beginning and at the end, so it gives us a sense of what to work on. If they do well on it, then they can start higher. Maybe they don't have to take the additional 3 hours of support. Maybe they can just take the full college level course. But everybody is going on to college level at the end of it. It's not something where they're going to sit and do it over and over and over again and have to get a certain score to get out. As you're doing them, always including student success content, using this as that chance to talk to students. And actually, I know this is my last one, I'll come back to the incentivize, but exactly what Nala was saying, you've got their attention, you've got their time. This is a great time to get to know students and see what advising you can do in helping them with their own skill set, their own, what their interests are, everything. We never have enough advisors. The advisors are always overloaded. This is a way where we can get some more one-on-one attention. So take advantage of that. Also, it's great if you can incentivize students to come, because that is, again, the struggle to get them to come. If you can make it something where if you go through all the 4 days or all 2 weeks or whatever, you get this. Because we can get more students to go through it. The problem is that isn't always free, but if you have funds from like the academic catch-up and you want to do some kind of incentive, that has absolutely shown to work, like maybe a gift card or something like that. I want to hear from you guys that are doing boot camps. So go ahead and unmute. If you're doing this, what is something you're seeing that is working? Or if there's something up here that you're like, ooh, we do that, but this is how we do it. I want to hear from you. How many students per group in boot camps? Yeah, that's a good question. I see a lot of times they'll like kind of like a class size, maybe 20 to 25. The problem that I've seen with so many schools is they have trouble getting enough to sign up. They don't usually have too many. Sometimes that happens, but if anybody's got too many, let us know what you're doing, because that's usually the struggle. Yes, Gary.
Yeah, I kind of asked that question because like in my math for liberal arts class right now, I have a couple sections that are online. And then I have a couple that are run as like what we call hybrids. So it's like 2 hours per week in person, and then they do everything else online. but I'm actually kind of running those hybrids kind of like a co-rec boot camp kind of model where, I mean, everything they do for grading is the same as my online class. I have them all in the same Blackboard course and everything, okay? But that weekly meeting is 2 hours. It's either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, depending on what location they're at. And it's kind of like, you know, helping them navigate the material, having them work on questions in groups, things like that. I think one of the reasons that that's being very successful, and I've been doing that for about 3 semesters now coming out of COVID, I think one of the reasons that's being really successful is because I've only ever had like 10 or 12 people in each of those hybrid cohorts. And man, you get down less than like 16 or 17 people. You can really get a lot of work done in 2 hours. And so I'm just curious what other people think about that.
Yeah. Okay, so Michelle asked, does anyone use a boot camp as a co-rec or extra to your first year experience course? Because from everything I've heard from Jenny, that you have lots of flexibility with how you use the boot camps. The main thing is they don't want them to be count for credit or charge students. Outside of that, we can do all kinds of things with them. Anyone else have anything you want to share? All right. Well, if you do, if you think of it, put it in the chat or unmute. All right. Last thing. If you're like, because I was talking to some schools this week and they got a lot on their plate. And I know a lot of you are in this boat, like you're trying to get stuff approved. You're trying to get stuff on the schedule for this fall. You're supposed to offer a boot camp this summer. And you're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know where I'm going to get the time to develop all this. So what I'm going to do is give you the down and dirty version of how to develop, what to put in a boot camp. I'm calling it my good, better, best. Okay. So can a student use a boot camp to decide if they want? Yes. I mean, that would be a great, if you want to talk about something that would help you with placement, oh my God, have them go through the boot camp and then have a chance to talk to them about their strengths, what they're interested in and what you're seeing. You know, I think that could be a great way to help with placement. It's a good tool. So here's as simple as it gets. All right. So I'm going to give you the, actually stop reading because that's just what our human brain does. We all read. Okay. So I've had multiple conversations in the last week with McGraw-Hill and Jenny, and I know they're having discussions. The hope is to be able to get a lower price statewide price for Alex PPL, like some other states, like my state has it $15 per student. I'm not saying we have, so if anybody's half listening, I am not saying Michigan has that. I'm saying we are talking about it, and that was where we love to end up. I think at best, I mean, at worst case scenario, it's 20 instead of the usual like 25. Now keep in mind, that's 5 attempts, a personalized plan, and a full year of access. And no one is saying you're mandated to use it. So in the same way that the state had a contract with AccuPlacer, they could do a contract with another company to offer a volume discount to schools. They're not, it's not, no one's saying you have to use that. It's just going to be nice. It'll be easier for you if you do. So I want people to know you still have choice. I will say the PPL, it's nice. I'm seeing a lot of people use it. So, but you can use Newton or Lumen or MiMath test. There's other softwares that you can use that can help you get some kind of diagnostic and have them work on skills. So that you, again, do not have to invent the wheel. I'm trying to, if we got to do this quick, get some software. That's going to save a lot of work on your part. And it's effective. So if I was doing this summer and someone is coming to me and they're like, Kathy, make it happen. You got to do a boot camp. And I'm like, crud, how am I going to do that in July? Okay, get some software and incorporate that in having someone who can run the boot camp. So you can have a section of it in some kind of where you have computer access. So a lab, unless your school requires that every student has a computer and then they bring their computer, but just use a lab if possible. However, oh, Brenda, could not agree more. Yes. So, and again, I don't work for them, so I can say whatever I want about them. Okay. So Alex is good for this use as a boot camp, especially for STEM-bound students, because it's so heavy on algebra. It's not great on QR. It also does not have all the bells and whistles with everything in terms of like videos and support and all that. The reason that people like it is because it's so bare bones and simple to get set up and using. It's not like my math lab, you got to build out a course. Alex, it's turnkey, but that means you don't have as many options. It's kind of like a Mac compared to a PC. You don't have as many options with it. And it is heavy on algebra. So yeah, I will tell you that because you can pick quite a bit in, and here's the thing, there's different versions of it. You got Alex for the classroom, Alex prep, and then Alex PPL is what I'm talking about. I don't know if, so you can pick in PPL too, or prep. Because if that's true, awesome. Because, you know, people do like it. Yes, if you're talking about course material, yeah, then it's 6 weeks for $30 a student. The PPL is less than $30 and it's for 1 year. And it doesn't have all the stuff that the prep does. It's very basic and it does what it does well. Okay, which is reviewing your algebra for what each student needs to do. But again, I don't think it's enough on its own. So what I would do is I would come up, and you don't have to fit any of this. I'm going to give you resources when I get you guys into Modern Math, our platform for like student success stuff, but you can also just go Google, I want a list of college student success tips, and you can use that, or maybe you already have your own. You don't need to create anything. I would incorporate those throughout your time working with them, and I would group students that are working on common skills together, either like give them a problem and put them in, groups, have them go to the boards, whatever. But that's what you could do to get a basic, impactful boot camp. I would start and end with giving whatever your diagnostic or placement test is. If it's Alex, that is starting and ending with a test. If it's something else, I've seen schools that use my math test with AccuPlacer, so they start and end with AccuPlacer. Lots of ways to do it, but you need to get a sense of where they're beginning and how much progress they make. Okay, let's see. IXL, is that what Elizabeth's asking? There is LXL. Never mind. Oh, Ken, okay. What about students? I don't know what, I've heard of IXL, but I have not actually used it. I know K-12 uses that. Okay. What about the students who tend to be in STEM pathway, but need more of a refresher review? We have a number of students in this situation. Yes, the boot camp. Yeah. And that is one thing that Alex, if you work with them, they'll tell you all their data. They have research that shows if students spend 5 to 7 hours in the system working, they typically will place up a level. So if you can have them working in Alex for a week, you can probably get them up to the point where the college algebra co-rec will work for them well. Okay? It kind of takes off some of that pressure of having to accomplish all of that. Also, then they would still have access to it. And so if there's things you're doing in the college algebra co-rec and they still need more practice, you would have this. So my point is, back with the pricing and all that, there's conversations being had. I don't know where they are, but I do want you to know they're in discussion, because several of you have said that you already use this or want to use it. So that's why I went and asked. Okay. Yes, Ken, agree. They aren't blank slates. They just need a bit of a warm up sometime. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Okay, if you want to have a better version of it, let's say you already have one and you're like, hey, what can I do to make ours work just a little bit better? I would come up with some, and you do not have to invent them. I'm going to give you access to Modern Math and you can just pull things and use them. But I would do some group work with some applications of skills. That's the next step in talking about student success. You can even do some student success activities, not just tips. Remember, you're going to have the slide deck. You don't have to write all this stuff down, but have a student success activity with them, actually doing something. And then another thing I would do is applying the skills, where you get them talking to each other. And it's not just, okay, I know how to factor this, or I can graph this line or whatever. Give them something that's more realistic, more involved. It'll ask more of them to integrate things. Even if it's not realistic, even if it's just more involved than a basic solve, simplify graph problem where they have to put some things together, having students work on those and having them work on a rich problem, that is excellent. You could do that. It doesn't cost you any money. You're just not going to have the whole time them working on the software. That's an excellent thing to do. Best would be, and some schools have this, but It's, you know, it's a lot of work. Best would be to have the whole shooting match where you have math, English, student success. You have regular things where they do tours and different groups come in and talk to your students, and then your students go places around the campus. And maybe you have like a workbook that has the student success and the applied math activities in it. You're still using software, but you've got everything, you know, it's like it's very highly structured and organized. That's lovely. And if you can get to it, awesome. What I want you to know is you can still have outstanding outcomes even with the good option. Okay, so I want you to know, do not hold yourself to the best standard, thinking that that's the only one that's going to get good outcomes. It isn't. What gets good outcomes is having students have a chance to work on the skills that they need, talk to each other and get insight from you, and having that chance to advise them and get more help on being a student. That's the magic. The other things are just how prettily packaged it is, you know, and how, you know, already set up and, you know, it is for you. Okay, so, all right, let's go into your document. Okay, so let's go into your document. I'll get it said right. Okay, so let's talk about the things that you're going to be doing and what you're, because I'm going to be turning you on into, I have to ignore that. Opening breakout rooms. My God, I'll get it said right. I'm going to open breakout rooms, and that's where we're going to be for the last hour. Okay. And you have plenty to do. So what you're going to, we talked about boot camps. The first thing that you need to do is, if you are going to use one, I'm not saying you have to, I'm saying it's an option. If you're going to use one, you're going to fill out in page 2 of your schedule this table. So I want you to think about, what software do we want to use? Please know, I'm not saying you have to use Alex. You don't. Okay. Heck, you could probably use Khan Academy if you were wanting to do something free. I'm not saying it's perfect. I don't love Khan Academy, but it's out there. So that's a possibility. Think about, how long do you want to try the first time or try the next offering of it? How many weeks are we going to try this? Do you want it to be math, English, and all, campus and all of that, or some variation thereof? Whatever you guys decide, pick it. Think about who could potentially staff it. Because you're going to be pulling back on developmental offerings, a lot of times administrators are open to letting you have someone run a boot camp as part of their load. So don't assume that you have to find money for stipends or all of that. They might allow someone to do that as load. So, that's why you have an administrator nearby, so you can ask them, is that possible? And then think about, what are we going to need in terms of content? If you want interesting problems, we're going to get you guys all into modern math in March. We're going to get you access. I don't think you've gotten it yet. We're going to get you access. And I've got hundreds of things you could just pull and use. Of course, you can just use your own, go on the internet, whatever. But I want you to know that you don't have to develop a bunch of stuff. You more just have to choose, what do you want to do with students. But be thinking about that. These are some of the things to be thinking about. So this is the first thing you're going to do when you get into breakouts. Make your boot camp choices. What questions do people have? We got a lot of good comments and questions in the chat. Is there anything else people want to talk through with boot camps?
Kathleen, this is, oh, never mind.
No, go ahead, Nicole. What do you need?
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's Nicole from LCC. So we have a math refresher, but then we're also planning our summer academic catch-up grant stuff. So, are we trying to answer questions on both? Because
well, in your case, yeah, because I guess most people, they just have like one. So, for you, you could copy this table and do it for each if you want, or if you're going to plan on continue to have both of them, however you want to do it.
Okay.
Because it's for you. So it's however you guys want. Okay, so you're going to do that. Then we're going to talk about the academic planning table in a second. So please don't be off to an email just yet. Come back to me because I need to show you some things with it. The other big thing that we talked about is you got to get the word out that your student services people, that we need more of them at the next meeting. So the next meeting is March 10th, I believe. So, sorry, I was trying to copy something. Okay, so this is office hour, Thursday, March 9th, optional 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern. Jenny will be there. I believe Jenny will also be at the work session. The work session 5 is the first part of doing the planning in terms of how do we make this work with advising and registration and the rest of campus? And then work session 6 is where we will finish that. It's going to take us a bit. It's not a quick thing to do any of that. 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, March 10th. Okay, so I need to explain to you the planning document, what you're going to be doing. We talked about that. Okay, so I want you to go to page 3 to the academic affairs planning. So you can see, like, this is what we're building towards to be able to have written down. Once you have, we don't need to have a giant narrative or a dissertation on this. We need something that's stated clearly so that anybody can see, this is what we added, this is what we got rid of, this is who's doing what and when it's happening. It just needs to be useful and clear. And what I have found is just having some kind of chart is as useful as anything that many people on the campus can have, that can see it. Okay. And actually what I do with my clients is we have a document like this that we have everybody on the core team and anybody we bring in from other areas. When I work with my individual ones, because you guys are clients too, but with individual, and everybody has access to the document and can add and be like, okay, we had a meeting on this part, here's our update. Making it a shared document, your plan being a shared document, is super helpful for getting things to continue to keep moving and everybody be in the know, because you're going to be fighting that throughout the whole thing. People are gonna be like, I didn't know that was happening. So we'll talk about communication a lot more the next time, because that's just enormous. Will Michigan Reconnect allow community colleges to require co-requisites? I don't know how to answer that. I mean, part of me thinks yes, but I think that'd be a really good question we need to have for Jenny. I'm going to make note of it. If you want to email her in the meantime and ask her, but I'm going to make note of it and make sure we get an answer.
If I can offer an opinion on that. Sure. So I believe it does, the current iteration does allow us to require co-requisites and does not dictate how we do placement, though it certainly has very strong recommendations on what we should consider, such as guided self-placement. If guided self-placement is mandated, depending on how it is mandated, right now, even the recommendation is very open. So as I shared our document last time from KCC, we built a very, what's the word I'm looking for? A modest amount, or not complete autonomy for the student in choosing their placement, even within the gateway courses, but something predicated on success and risk factors and trying to have some safety nets for students. So, but I think as the way that the legislation stands right now, the only thing that is expressly forbidden is standalone developmental courses. And my understanding is that kind of the primary interpretation of that is courses below 100 level. So, 099 and lower. And that has, that has been the subject of much discussion over the last couple of years, but that's my understanding.
All right, so let's look at the plan. Anything that's in italics is a note from me to you. Okay, when you start to work on this, delete anything you want. This is yours. Okay, but these are your milestones, and of course you can add more. You're like, we have something that we, it's a milestone is just a little bit bigger than a task. It involves often multiple tasks, and this is the easiest way in terms of project planning, which is by far my weakest skill, without question. But I am learning. I have grit, I have determination. I'm just not there yet, but I'm learning. These are the major things that need to happen for us to be able to implement. And again, it doesn't matter if you are, you got everything in place. You probably still have some milestones in terms of like, we want to improve this, or we want to adjust this, or whatever. It just may not be create, because you've already created it. Okay, so Anything you need to add or delete with courses. The main thing is, I'm not going to read through every single one of these. I want to hit the big ones that I know that are the most important. Just be specific in here. Give yourself a deadline. Be honest, whatever it is. And it could be a month. It could be fall semester. It could be whatever. This is your document. But you need to attach what are the things that are going to happen and who's going to be responsible for it. Doesn't mean that person does all of them. You need to have someone who is responsible for seeing that milestone to completion. They will definitely have to get other people to probably help them complete all the tasks. Okay, but have a who, definitely. When you're going to work on it, what are the tasks that need to be done? Let me go down to another one. Okay, this is the biggie. This is the one, if you could talk about today, if you got your courses, you know what you're going to offer and you know when you're going to offer them, you need to be thinking about your transition plan. So I always encourage schools when they're going to go to scale to not do it in stages. Just do it. It's more painful to do it over time. It's easier to just rip off the Band-Aid, say we're no longer offering these courses and we're only offering these courses. So it might be we're done offering beginning and intermediate. We're only offering co-rec, whatever. Pick your semester that you're doing full rollout, which may be next spring. Maybe you're doing a partial rollout this fall. I don't know. But when are you going full rollout? Okay. The semester before that becomes your transition semester. And that's the hardest part of all of this is the transition, because you got to be thinking about the students who have already started some of your courses or maybe in a course that's not going to exist in the fall. Okay. So, but you need to think through those cases, like who's in, like Math 87, because I know some of you have that. Who's in Math 87 now? What are we going to have them take in the fall? Okay, if you're in the co-rec now, what are you going to take? If the co-rec doesn't exist, what are you going to take? All right. But be thinking about what are they going to take in the fall or the transition semester before the full one. Offering co-recs at scale is a lot in your schedule. So this is where we're thinking about who's teaching it. How many sections do we need to offer? Are we going to have two different people teaching it? And so they need to coordinate. I'm trying to get you to think about some of these things. You're not going to do all this today. These are huge, heavy things to talk through. I want you to try to pick, if you could get through 2 or 3 rows, that would be amazing. Otherwise, keep working on it. And hopefully when you see in 2 weeks, you'll have more progress, but you may not be done even then, but hopefully you'll have more progress. Whatever you decide about your boot camp, you can put in there. Placement. You're not going to go deep into here because placement is something we have to do with a lot of student support because it impacts so many areas. So all I would do with placement is just identify when are you thinking wanting to roll it out. That may have to change when you have more people when you're talking about it. And who on the academic side of the house is going to need training? Like, do faculty also do advising at your college? So are they going to need training? Because definitely advisors are going to get training, and we'll be talking about that in later meetings. But and then anything you have questions about, go ahead and start making your list. These are the things that we're going to have to figure out with our student affairs staff. This is the other big one. Communicating changes to other areas. The easiest way to do this is go back to that document I had you create in your drive where you listed all of your areas of people that have a math prerequisite and the contact person. Sending out, you can send out an email, and I would also encourage you to have a meeting. Do both, because then you have it in print, but you can also answer questions. Tell them, show them the new flow chart, explain, this is what's gone away, or this is what's changed, or this is what's been added, whatever. You have been impacted by that because one of those courses you needed, and tell them this is what we suggest you do to accomplish the needs that you have for your classes with math. So the easiest solutions are, tell them they could use your boot camp if you have it. Offer that there's other existing courses that you have that may work as a better prerequisite. For example, sometimes bio has beginning algebra as a prerequisite because they want students to be able to do graphs. We'll have them do liberal arts math instead. They're going to have a better chance of passing it, and they're going to learn more things that are going to be useful to college anyway. So could they use a different course that you already have for a prerequisite? Or they could add an hour or a lab or whatever they need as a co-requisite to an existing course. That's especially good in chemistry. They can just often add an hour for math, like a math workshop. Okay, so I want to open rooms. This is really the tough work. So anybody that needs help, I'm going to pop around and see anybody that needs help. And if anybody needs more attention just with me with your individual college, let me know. And we can well set up more things after next week. Just because next week I'm going to be gone most of it in Nashville, but I'm not going to deny this is challenging. If you're getting to a stalemate, please let me know, because that's all I do is create solutions that work for lots of people at the same time. So if you're getting like, we can't agree to this, we want this, and we cannot compromise, let me know. I'll try to problem solve with you and see if we can come up with something. Okay, so here are your room numbers. Where's the thing at? Let's do breakouts. And let participants choose room. God, we learned that the hard way, didn't we? Okay, 16. All right. They will be open until the top of the hour, and then I have to close them because of another meeting. But you have the rest of the time to work together. You know what your homework is. And so check your homework if you need that, but start having these discussions. Let me know when you need help. I will come and help you. And if anybody's having trouble getting assigned to a room, let me know and I'll put you in one. Sometimes with iPads and phones, they don't do nice.
I have no people today again. Probably because of the power stuff that we've had. The campus is open, but I don't know if folks are just having to take a day off, because I know like we just got power back last night.
Oh, holy cow.
So which was early, because some people are, the estimate is Sunday or Monday or next week.
Oh my.
Like Jackson College is this supposed to get power back until Wednesday, I think.
That's, oh my God, that's awful. Wow.
So that'll teach them to train those consumers people, but no, whatever.
Oh my God.
They have a program for, but anyway, thank you so much. I heard you talking about discussions about Alex and all of that. I really appreciate you running with that.
Yep.
And
I heard that from multiple people. It's like clearly people are using it. So I'm like, let's get some people talking.
Or want to convince our powers that be that we should, or
what's something that could maybe save, we could save some money and help some students. So
right,
I think there's potential there a lot.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: are you bringing folks back for additional discussions, or not really?
Not today. We're just going to we're just going to close out. They can just work. If they need to leave, they can leave, whatever they need to do.
Yep. And
then,
I apologize. I got an urgent phone call for like 2 seconds. So
just go. We'll take care of it.
Completely missed it, but
no, you're fine. You can leave if you need to. Yeah, we're not coming back together.
I probably will, because let me just tell you, the boot camp stuff that you've shared is fantastic. So we have like 2 different things going on. We have that catch up work that's starting. But we also have, through our Center for Student Success, we currently have a group that I'm on and my counterpart in English is on, and they have been doing more of like a single day boot camp approach for English, as well as for technology and something else that I'm not thinking right now. But anyway, I told, so the gal that heads up the Center for Student Success is a good friend of mine, former boss.
I'm listening. I just made me think of something. I need to get those slides posted to the main, so in case you need them. But I'm listening.
That's I want to share it with this group. So we have they have an advisory, because one of the things I have tried to do is kind of push this, and I said, hey Holly, we really need to have a boot camp for math too.
Yeah.
Because they had it for English. And we had tried a longer boot camp as a credit bearing course previously. It didn't go for a number of reasons. It's not really that important, but there's a lot of boot camp-ish stuff that's being discussed right now. So this is so timely for us, even if, there wasn't this work going on.
Yeah.
These other pieces are kind of independent, even of the catch up. So I just wanted to thank you for doing that.
Yeah, it seemed like we just didn't have time to do all of it last week, and it's really come up, and I'm like, let's
Yeah.
talk about it today. And I had someone yesterday, they're literally like, I have to do this in like 2 months. I don't know how I'm gonna get
Right.
it together. So that's why I came up with the like quick and dirty. How could you get
Mhm.
this going
Right.
and not have to invent the wheel? So
Yeah, no, so thank you, thank you. I'll share that, and then I'm gonna start drumming up folks to be here, but both my team members to be here, but also the student services folks to be here.
Yes.
So
yeah,
so I
'cause
kind of I
that'll
know
be so
I know I've got
helpful.
my work cut out for me the next couple weeks, but I kind of wanted to let you know I am gonna go ahead and take off.
Okay.
Because I'm useless by myself. Yes, I can fill it out by myself, but that's not the point.
No.
I already could fill it out by myself before. The point is for all of us to come together and talk through this and
Right.
get your help. So I'm not really accomplishing that, but I think that resource that you gave for the boot camps is fabulous. So thank
Oh,
you so
glad to
much.
hear it.
Hey, you have a wonderful weekend, Kathy.
You too.
Thanks again. Good to see you.
All righty.
See you in a couple weeks.